the sun is overhead and I've got deep set eyes and it makes me look like a skeleton, you know?
Look at me. Now raise your chin up a little bit. Just a little bit. Nah, no difference. You got those deep sunk eyes, Patrick.
Hi, welcome to Old School with Patrick Rooney, the podcast where old school wisdom is new again. I explore natural health, success, and freedom with my amazing guests.
All right, welcome to Old School with Patrick Rooney. I am doing a lot of podcasts right now with friends all over the country, well-known people that know stuff, smart people, and we're doing a COVID-19 type of thing here where we really want to get what's going on, get the kind of on-the-ground ideas of what's happening and related issues to it. So you can always go to oldschoolus.com, oldschoolus.com, and find out everything that we're doing. Oldschoolus.com is about health, natural health especially. I'm a conservative hippie. I just found that out. And it's all about natural health. It's about having success. We're going to deal with success and getting the U.S. online again today. I have a very special guest on today. His name is Rick Oldman. And he's with NoBordersNoNation.org. And Rick is an old friend. I didn't say old Rick. I just say an old friend. Okay? I didn't say old comma friend. But he's a good friend. He's been around a long time. As I told him yesterday, or last time I talked to him, this man has forgotten more about immigration, about restoring the culture of the United States than most people will ever know in their lifetime. So with that said, welcome, Rick. How are you?
Doing well, Patrick. Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, it's really my pleasure. And I want to talk about today, I was going to talk to you anyway, as you know. I wanted to talk to you about COVID-19 and sanctuary cities, which you just wrote an article about, which is I want to dig into a little bit. But funny thing is, after I already booked you for the show, guess what happened? President Trump decided he said he's going to do an executive order stopping what immigration? All immigration coming into the United States, effective hopefully dang near immediately. Before we go any further, Rick, got to ask you, what do you think about this? As if I don't know.
I think it's logical given the situation. I actually heard about this last night when I got an email from former Congressman Tom Tancredo.
Oh, cool.
Who, of course, was an immigration warrior.
Great warrior.
And so I immediately looked it up, and I just checked before we went on here, and the executive order hasn't written yet, but the predictable responses from the Democrats on the left, it's racist, it's xenophobic and all that.
Yeah.
It's logical. First of all, it's logical. This is not an I told you so. Well, it is sort of an I told you so, but not a nah, I told you so. Everybody has been talking about this possibility. Look, when you can get on an airplane anywhere on the planet Earth and within 24 to 48 hours be anywhere else on planet Earth,
yeah,
that is the perfect vector for communicable diseases.
Absolutely.
Why do we have Ellis Island in New York? Why do we have Angel Island in San Francisco Bay?
Yeah.
And for those people...
We've forgotten these things, Rick. We've forgotten the basics of keeping ourselves safe.
What I try to do is explain it, especially to the younger people, and even this is a little stretch, but in the movie The Godfather 2, the sequel, the excellent sequel to The Godfather.
Oh, yeah, great movies.
Vito Andolini is escaping Sicily. He's 8 years old. They show the very emotional scene where they're all passing by the Statue of Liberty. The next scene, the custom guy gets his name wrong and calls him Vito Corleone. Okay.
Yeah.
The next scene, he's being examined by a doctor, and he has smallpox, and he's put into quarantine on Angel Island. That's why we have Angel Island, on Ellis Island for Vito Corleone. We have Angel Island in San Francisco Bay, which was used to isolate the Chinese that were coming in who might have had tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is a disease that has killed more human beings than any other disease, period, in the history of mankind.
That was in San Francisco?
In San Francisco Bay, right. But getting back to President Trump and all this is logical. It does make sense. And I think it's going to go farther than simply protect us from coming in with communicable diseases. And that's just not the coronavirus. Okay. Yeah. It's all communicable diseases.
Everything.
Now, it's going to give us a chance, I think, to push the reset button on immigration.
Absolutely.
Because as it's going to be opened up again, there's a lot of things in our country and our culture which are going to be changed because of this.
Yeah.
But as we come back to it, we're going to start seeing changes, and we're going to start having sensible, logical looks at what we're doing.
Well, how does somebody, they can call a racist card, but how do they go against President Trump doing what he's doing when he said he stopped immigration from China, which they went crazy about, but they know obviously helped. I mean, if you have a disease coming from somewhere, essentially a pandemic, guess what makes sense? Stopping people from coming from that country. Everybody knows that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's because the left doesn't have much. I think that even with all of this chaos and the damage that this virus is doing, I think President Trump stands a very good chance of being reelected. I think the Democrats know that. I think it was Rush Limbaugh who said last month that the Democrats don't think they can beat him, so they don't want to hurt anybody who might have a future. Mayor Pete, Elizabeth Warren, any of these people. Biden doesn't have a future. This is it for him. And so,
so Rick, you're saying that they are giving up this particular election cycle, you think?
Already? Well, I think they were before this happened, but at this point, they're seeing their base desert them. I saw the other day a poll that said that black support for President Trump had doubled. It's up to 20% now.
Yeah,
that's crucial. Yeah. That is crucial.
It is
to the Democrat Party. That something like 15% of Bernie supporters were going to end up voting for Trump instead of Biden. So I think all this screaming of racism and xenophobia is designed to hold on to the base that they have. I don't know that they're bringing in any more people because they've said it so much it's lost its meaning, really.
Well,
I think it's designed to hold on to the base that they have, that they're desperate to not lose.
Okay, I wasn't going originally into so much the election, but now that you're here, okay, is it possible though that they have a wild card? Even let's call it the VP, because I don't think they're going to bump out Joe Biden as the top slot, right? But let's say they bring in a so-called superstar like.
I don't know. I think the vice presidential pick is going to be very interesting. I saw some people postulating that it might be Michelle Obama.
Okay. I'm putting up the black hand here. Okay, you said this, Rick, and I was saying this quietly for a long time. So you didn't want to give them any ideas. But I think that she would be very popular. But I don't even think that Michelle can save them now.
Yeah, I don't think so. And for all the talk, and you go on leftist media, you go into the leftist media websites a lot, and you see the memes that they're going to continue to push. Oh, the stock market is down. Oh, that's Trump's death knell. Oh, the economy. What's the economy going to do? I think this economy is going to snap back like a rubber band. Not all of it, not all parts of it, because some of it is going to have to be readjusted given what we've learned from this.
Yeah,
This economy is going to snap back. We're going to hear complaints and worries about inflation when everybody goes out and starts spending their money again. And I think possibly by November, this whole thing will be a distant memory, because this is about over. Warmer weather, and I've studied viruses. I got a couple of publications here. I think I mentioned to you this one.
Flu pandemic of 2018 and 19. Interesting. When was that put out?
April 2018, and he nails it. He talks about it. The only one thing he gets wrong is the name. He's talking about a flu pandemic, not coronavirus. Otherwise, everything else in terms of travel, the impact on business, stores, personal protective equipment, PPE, and the shortages, ventilators, everything. He talks about it. And then, you know what I found, Patrick, is I went back and I started looking at other things. Scientists and doctors and virologists have been writing about this basically since 1957.
Wow.
In the big outbreak. But so I've been studying about it and learning it a lot.
Let me slow this down for a sec. So was this guy, SARS came out in what, 2008 or so?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Now,
Well, wasn't SARS a coronavirus type?
in this, which I have not read, but I'm going to start reading today, The Viral Storm, which is written in 2011, he refers to the wet markets. They all talk about wet markets.
Well, they do.
Graham talks about them. He talks about them. I watched a 2003 video from PBS the other day, 2003, 17 years ago, talking about all of this pandemic. Again, a shortage of personal protective equipment, a shortage of ventilators, and wet markets. Wet markets comes up in all of this because it is a good vector for the transmission of diseases from birds to mammals.
SARS did that, right? So during the heat, it came out, and the heat started messing with it, and it dropped it out, right?
Yeah.
I saw another guy that had it was an Israeli, he used to be a general in the Israel army. And he was saying, he's now a top professor in Israel. He was saying that, I think he said like 60 or 70 days these things have a life for, and then they end. He's looked at the numbers. I can believe that. So
and I think this self-quarantining has probably accelerated the decline in the infection rate. It is very possible. This is just my prediction. I'm not a doctor, but come election day, we may have experienced 5 or 6 months of the healthiest time in America, because when we're not out spreading the coronavirus to each other, what also aren't we spreading to each other? All the other communicable diseases.
That's right. All of that.
I went to a local testing facility the other day because I actually think I had this in January. So I'm going to get a blood test and confirm it because of some odd things and some things that just may be coincidental, but are common for the infection. So I went over. I was talking to a nurse, and we were talking, and I had mentioned to her about the SARS virus, about H1N1, about all of this stuff, and she says, and we're both standing there with masks talking to each other, and she goes, yeah. And I said, and the lack of personal protective equipment and the lack of it. She goes, we never seem to learn. And I said to her, I think we're not going to forget this. We will learn from this. And she laughed and she said, absolutely. So I think now, looking forward, we're going to be better prepared for something like this because it's going to happen again. All of these books.
It is going to happen again.
It's going to happen.
And maybe the same thing flares up again. But whatever it is, and this may be a point where we can interject a little bit about possibly where this thing started. I mean, we kept hearing the seafood market story. And then, actually in 2015, right, there was Fauci was involved in this in the Obama administration. They were studying these viruses here, right, in the United States. And then at some point, it was the DOD, or not the DOD, it was the Department of Homeland Security said, no, you're not going to study this stuff anymore. Stopped it. But then Fauci worked around that, and we gave a grant, had a grant given to China so they could study the same thing.
3.7 million in 2015 to this virology lab, from the way I understand it.
So the question I have is, what were we studying? I mean, how far along was this thing? And then if it was supposed to be shut down, why did Fauci and the NIH go around it and get it funded? What were they doing getting this thing funded in China?
From a scientific point of view, viruses are absolutely fascinating. Viruses aren't alive. Viruses are simply genetic material surrounded by protein.
Okay.
When viruses enter a cell, a eukaryotic cell, we're eukaryotic beings, the virus takes over the cell's self-replicating machinery to make copies of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been calling it the terrorist of the subcellular world, because after it takes over the cell and it makes hundreds or thousands of copies of itself, that's called the burst rate, it then breaks out of the cell, destroying that cell, right, and then infecting other cells. It's sort of like terrorists invading an arms manufacturer, making a bunch of guns and then blowing up the factory as they leave. They're absolutely fascinating from the scientific point of view. So I can see somebody wanting to learn more about it. Now,
okay,
my guess at this point, maybe they should have, maybe they shouldn't have been studying it, but somebody made a mistake and accidentally got infected, and that's how this thing spread.
Okay, so I heard, Rick, that COVID, basically a mixture of SARS and even HIV thrown in there to make sure it gets fully into the person and knocks out their immune system and works it against itself. They put all these things together. what is the purpose of this?
Well, that is nefarious.
Is it not future warfare?
If that is nefarious, if in fact that was the goal, because what HIV does as a virus is our immune system will identify, everybody knows this, will identify foreign objects and then create T cells to attack it. Yeah. What HIV does is it tells that cell which is identifying it, you can't tell the other cells chemically what we look like. That's what HIV does. If somebody was in fact doing that, that is nefarious, that is dangerous, that is something that needs to be looked into and punished, because there's no need to do that. That is dangerous.
I've been interviewing people, even on this show that we've been talking about. These are bugs, guys. This is not the lighting. I'm not doing martial arts here. This is the South. I've been interviewing people even on this show that said, and there's been documentation on this, that supposedly there was a man in Saudi Arabia. This is going to kind of go back a little bit, but he got the virus eventually, coronavirus. If you follow me, and they took the virus. They were studying it in Canada. There's an Ottawa, I believe it's an Ottawa lab up there, a major lab, right, like a level 4 lab, I believe. And Chinese were working there. There's a lot of this going on back and forth between China. There's a 1,000 Talents program, and there's a lot of stuff going on where they've been using the West against itself. And there's also a guy from Harvard that got caught. That's like a whole nother story.
I remember that.
But the one in the Ottawa lab, I believe it was, or Winnipeg, I forget which now, one of those major cities up there. Chinese were working up there under the guise of saying they were students. They ended up getting kicked out of that lab up there. And the ringleader is known to be working with the Chinese People's Army, okay? And so those people were kicked out, and she made, I think it was 5 trips in between like 2015 and 2017, back and forth between Canada and the province. What was the main province? Wuhan. Now, the facility, the level 4 facility that's in Wuhan is located about 20 miles away from the seafood market, right? Makes you want to go, right? So knowing that China, I'm just throwing in some background here, knowing China's background, knowing that they've been interested in bloodless victory for a long time, you could do a biological situation, not have to get your million-man army wiped out, also not have to take on the big Satan by itself because you're not strong enough to take them on head on. Isn't that art of war kind of stuff where you're not ready to take them on, so you have to look for other ways?
I agree with that. I have some acquaintances that are quite conspiratorial, and I listen with interest to their conspiracy theories. But my response has always been, look, China needs America more than we need China. They need our markets. It doesn't make any sense. Now, were they developing this for the future in case some future conflict would come up? That I think is entirely possible. I mean, did they launch this on us because they want to declare war on us? That doesn't make any sense. I think the Chinese communists are much smarter than that.
Yeah, you might be right. But why would they put all of these horrendous diseases together, 3 of them, to basically, what do they call that? Gaining function, right? Why would they gain function with this kind of stuff that's so serious if they didn't have some intent for it, at least at some point?
I agree with that. If in fact that is what they were doing, that is nefarious, that is dangerous, that does show at some point they intended to use this on somebody.
Okay. I agree. So let's stop that there for now. We can always move back into it, but I want to get in. I want to talk about what I first brought you on for,
Sanctuary City.
The Sanctuary City. So here's what you said in your article. And again, you can go to nobordersnonation.org to see Rick's stuff. Rick's got a huge background. We didn't even get into it. You're a modest fellow, so you don't say a lot about yourself. But you've been involved in the immigration control movement, I guess you would call it, way back when. I've known you for years. I was associated with that in some small way, not in the way that you were, but certainly I was a foot soldier there as well. And we worked together with other organizations to try to stop this in California, in Southern California and in Northern California, going back to probably early 90s you were probably involved in?
92 was when I got started. Of course, in 94 was when we had Proposition 187. And Patrick, when you and I were working together with all of our friends in the trenches in California, we actually thought we were trying to save California because we could see the change that was taking place, law and order, cultural changes, and all of that. What we didn't realize at the time was that, yes, we were fighting to save California. We were also fighting to save America.
Yes, we were.
But any of us that thought about that then didn't realize at the time we're also fighting to save Western civilization.
Yes.
We've done more to free more Americans, to free more human beings from disease, poverty, tyranny, everything. Western civilization has done that. So when we got started back in the early 90s, we didn't realize that we were actually fighting to preserve Western civilization.
Absolutely right.
Needs to be preserved. Absolutely.
Absolutely right. And I do want to mention, some of these people, because just to throw it out there, because we have people, Trump kind of came along at a certain point, but before him, you would say Pat Buchanan was the guy in the political sphere. Tom Tancredo from Colorado. These were the politicians, and there were a few others, but not many. George Putnam on the radio, a warrior going back to the time of the silent movies just about. I mean, he went way back there, right?
Right.
He interviewed Mae West, I believe, at some point in his career. So you have people like Terry Anderson, God rest his soul.
Right.
This guy was a black man, a conservative, and this guy was fearless and so full of life. I can see him like I'm seeing him today when I think about it. He was so full of life. Barbara Coe and her organization, the late Barbara Coe as well. She was such a character, a fighter. I mean, she was colorful, all hell, but what a fighter.
Yes.
Glenn Spencer in Arizona, who's probably still there, and I haven't talked to him.
Yes.
Okay. Jesse Lee Peterson and Bond.
Absolutely.
Give Bond his props, and I helped out there as well. But Jesse did a lot as well, and he was fearless. And so you had others too. You had many, many others. But I just want to say that, and you were one of those people. Fair, of course. And you worked with Fair at some point, and they did a great job. There was a lot of people. All the stuff we're talking about with Trump, there would be no Trump without all these people ahead of time, because these are like the John the Baptist that paved the way for Jesus. Basically.
That's absolutely right. And I have to give a lot of credit to Trump's election to Maria at the Remembrance Project, Maria Espinoza.
Yes.
Actually, you mentioned Terry, who I love Terry like a brother.
Yeah.
And it was 21 years ago now. It was 99 when I arranged the first victims hearing in Washington. I arranged it with a staffer for the House Immigration Subcommittee, and Lamar Smith was one of Lamar Smith's staffers. And we had Terry testifying, and we had some other people, because up to that point, all they ever talked about was how the illegal aliens are this. I said, well, what about the victims of the illegal aliens? And I was talking to the staffer, and he said, yeah. And I said, if you can have a hearing, and I said, and I want it on C-SPAN. So there was a number of people that actually you can, if you go to YouTube and you put in Terry Anderson, I put that piece up there where Terry is actually talking about the impact. And
on the black community, because in Southern Cal, and I'm from Southern Cal originally, I grew up in this. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm from the Valley. I'm a Valley guy, not a Valley, the Valley girl. Remember the Valley girl? But I was a Valley guy. And I never got the California accent because my parents were from the East Coast. I always had kind of an East Coast blue collar mentality. My dad was a plumber, and I just had this blue collar thing going on. But California was destroyed. The San Fernando Valley, where I grew up, was destroyed, and so was most of California. Even some of the most conservative areas, like Orange County, which was Bob Dornan, another warrior, right? I don't even know, is he still around? I don't think he is, but no.
And proven that there was enormous amounts of illegal alien voting in that election. But never investigated by the government.
He showed that, and the California Republican Party was, and probably still is, so cowardly that they would not back him when they knew that there was all sorts of illegal voting going back. We would not be dealing with the illegal voting we're having to deal with today that Trump's having to clean up if it was cleaned up originally in California way back when Bob Dornan.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And just another smack at the California Republican Party. When we won Proposition 187 in 1994, overwhelmingly won it. with everybody against us, including, not just the Democrats, but also Republicans. East Coast, big names, the whole thing, and won it. When that election was over and we had won, I wanted to then sponsor one more thing, because there's nothing like the people speaking out like that we want our laws enforced, 187 was basically a tax bill that just cut off tax dollars to illegal aliens. That's what it did.
Yeah.
But
which is totally sensible and obvious. Why would you want to give your tax money to people who are illegally in your country?
Absolutely. Now, at the time, I was a member of the California Republican Party, a voting member. I was a co-chair of one of the outreach committee for the California Republican Party, and I chaired one of the campaigns that supported Prop 187 in our victory.
Good for you.
I could not get in to see the new chair of the California Republican Party. He wouldn't take a phone call. I couldn't get a chance to see him because obviously I wanted to do a follow-up. We were so successful on this. Let's go to the next phase and let's do this. Nothing. And I know there's a lot of people on the left. They want to blame the decline in California and the decline of Republicans in California on Prop 187. No, it was the lack of support for the people's will to pass 187 that led to the decline of California Republicans.
Well, you know what? You're exactly. The bats got into the belfry. We had a conservative. First of all, when I was a kid, let's take it back a little bit. When I was young, I wasn't even into politics, but I remember I used to read the newspaper a lot, the Sunday paper. I was always into that kind of stuff. I remember reading an article one time saying that California, under then Governor Ronald Reagan, had a surplus. A surplus. Okay? Now, and we also didn't have all this illegal immigration, right? All of this stuff started changing. It could have been saved. California could have remained a red state. California could have remained a golden state. And the Republican Party wanted to get the Latino vote, and they sold out everybody else in order to get what they thought was the future because they could see certain trends. Well, guess what? Those trends don't have to be trends if you close your border.
Well, going after the Latino vote, that was actually shown when John McCain was running for president in 2008. He didn't even, the pro-amnesty John McCain, the open border John McCain. Yeah. John McCain didn't even get half of the Latino vote in Arizona, where they knew that he was open borders. What does that tell you?
It tells you it's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea, and Americans don't support that. Now, there's a lot of problems in the world.
By the way, that's what Trump has been fighting to get elected. And since he's been elected, the deep state and all that, it's a lot of globalism. It's a lot of this open borders crap. And that's what a lot of the undercurrent of what he's been fighting all this time.
Well, this whole coronavirus thing is going to give us a way to work our way out. I'm not cheering for it. I'm not saying, I'm glad we have it so that we can deal with it. No. I'm being realistic. We have it. We have to deal with it now. Now is the time to look at globalism. Globalism, as we knew it, is dead.
That's right. Rick, it's a silver lining. And even in all the bad, even in all the bad stuff that's going on, you have to look for, as the Chinese would say, ironically, opportunity among the danger, right?
There's always, we're going to have to work our way out of this. All these things are going to have to be considered. I think President Trump's announcement that he's just going to end all immigration at this point is logically smart to prevent the influx of any communicable diseases at this point, but also a chance to look at every single thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, we could look at it before, but now we have an absolute necessity that we look at these things. It's a necessity that is obvious to everybody. We've always thought that it was a necessity.
It's kind of like taking the don't let any good crisis go to waste, which was a Democrat saying that.
Rahm Emanuel,
Rahm Emanuel, who was Obama's chief of staff and the mayor of Chicago. It's kind of like taking that and turning it on its head and using it for good. I'll give you a perfect for instance for that. Something that just happened. Oil just crashed yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, crude oil just crashed. What did Trump do? Did you see what he did about that?
What?
He said, okay, we're going to use this opportunity. The oil just crashed and went to a very low rate. to build up our strategic reserve that we need.
Well, of course. I mean,
So that's Trump. And these people on the left call him a dummy and this guy's an idiot and orange man dad and all this stuff. This guy is a genius, in my opinion.
He's a businessman. He's a salesman. Okay, you see that, and you got to sell. Okay, I was a salesman and trained salesman, and what we learned is nothing in the world happens until somebody sells something.
That's right.
He's a salesman, but he's also a problem solver. That's what business owners do. You got a problem, solve it. If you don't know about it, you bring in the experts and you listen to the debate, and then you say, okay, now I like this. Now you don't like what he said. Why is that? And then you listen. Okay, and then you make the decision. That is what problem solvers do. That is what managers do. Managers must manage, said Harold Janine, the management guru, and that is what President Trump does. And so we're going to be looking at all of this stuff again. And again, the silver lining, I think you're right. Nobody wanted this kind of a disaster to get us to the point to where we're stopping immigration. But
here we are.
Now we can look to reopen it, to hit the reset button and do it in a way that benefits America and Americans.
Absolutely. And it's funny, Rick, that they talk about Trump and they kind of try to make fun of him in certain ways and say, oh, this is like these daily briefings are like The Apprentice and we got to get this off TV. The only reason they want it off TV is because it's been effective.
I think so.
But the point of The Apprentice is The Apprentice, he is doing what he was doing with The Apprentice. In other words, he's solving problems in real time, bringing people in. He had a board and everything. And he worked out issues right in front of our eyes, which he's doing now. How many people will be that open, transparent about what they're doing?
Well, I read the other day if Hillary Clinton had been elected, she'd probably be involved in ripping off all the welfare that's being offered like she did in Haiti, except it would be 1,000 times more. Except it would be 1,000 times more. Let's go back to the sanctuary cities because I did update it.
Let me say this, Rick, before we get there. I want to throw one more name out just for posterity's sake here, okay? Ezola Foster, Black woman. She ended up running for vice president with Pat Buchanan in the Reform Party, right?
That's right.
And I remember going to Long Beach Arena and seeing the opening for that.
I was there. I was in the California delegation.
She gave an opening speech or prayer, as I recall, for that. So she unfortunately has passed away as well, and I didn't know that.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I did not.
I wasn't told that. I just heard about that very recently. But she was a teacher in LA and had enough is enough with the illegal immigration, and she started speaking out. She wonderful lady, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there as well.
Ezola, her students were black kids. She saw her students being hurt by this massive illegal immigration, and she spoke up for her American students.
That's right.
And was punished for it and forced out.
Yeah, that's right. She lost her job. She had to fight.
She lost her job. Now, I was there. I was actually in the California delegation when Pat Buchanan picked her to be the vice president. I just also want to say, and this is also, I think I put this on YouTube, Terry Anderson gave a presentation at the nomination, just before the nomination too, in his overalls. In his overalls. Everything he did was in his overalls. That was Terry's
Terry Anderson I don't think he owned a suit because he was a mechanic in South Central, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And everything he did, no matter what you said he was giving a speech before the nomination of Foster to be vice presidential nominee for the Reform Party under Pat Buchanan. He came in overalls.
Trademark overalls. But,
it was hilarious. There
were so many. There were just so many people that we did work with, that we met from time to time, and just all good Americans. I want to give you one quick vignette, and it's going to sound a little harsh until I get to the end. But I was on a panel. Many times I was like the only white guy on the panel, and there was a couple of Hispanics and some blacks, and I was, of course, taking the immigration reform. We need to control this. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I started to talk. I said, there used to be a union of black janitors in Los Angeles that provided good employment and good wages to black men and janitors. And it got wiped out by undercutting, the illegal aliens undercut it. And I said, now we have black Americans that are moving from California to the South. They're not moving back to the South. They're moving to the South because they believe there to be more opportunity. And one of the gals down at the end, one of the black gals down the end, she looks at me and she goes, "Well, Rick, we didn't know you cared about African Americans." And I looked at her and I said, "I don't care about African Americans. I care about Americans.
Yep.
Citizens are being hurt by this, and it's not right." And they all just went silent.
Yeah.
So you know when you've scored a direct hit.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right over the target, right? Hey,
Oh,
okay,
man.
as promised, we're going to get to your article, COVID-19 in sanctuary cities. Now, set this up a little bit. You said in the article, almost 60% of coronavirus deaths, I'm sure it hasn't changed much since your article, are in 19 counties out of over 3,000 counties, 3,007 counties. 19 of those counties hold 600% of the deaths, okay? And I'm going to name them, and then we can talk about them a little bit.
Now, just as a caveat,
yes,
this was a couple of weeks ago when I put this together, so the data has we've gotten better data. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah, but probably the 5 counties are still the top. I would think. I don't know.
I would, yeah.
New York City, and they're in order, right? New York City, number 1.
Right.
Of course, we know that. And New York City is in. What's the county that New York City's in?
I'm not sure, but New York City at that time had 790 deaths. As of last night, when I checked it again, 14,773 deaths.
Wow.
Now, here's a problem I have with that. We're hearing that a lot of deaths are being put down as COVID-19 deaths when maybe they weren't.
Right.
You know, the lack of data. I mean, we need to know the facts. Okay.
Well, Rick, if somebody came into a hospital, they came in for something else, and they die. Right? If there's some connection to coronavirus.
That's another category then, huh? If you had a heart problem, but you got the COVID virus,
yeah,
and then you ended up dying, maybe you had a heart attack and you died in the hospital, but you also, so it's COVID related, let's say, because
right,
it weakened your state. But this is the kind of thing that we need to see, not just, I mean, we're talking politics right now. How about for medical investigations? You know, everything we hear in the media nowadays, we have to take with a grain of salt.
Absolutely.
And, but if in fact some of these stories are true and some deaths are being attributed to COVID-19 when the person didn't even have it,
yeah,
or they might have had some underlying condition, for the scientific, for the medical purposes, not just our purposes, but for the medical purposes, we need to know what that case is, because maybe we're going to find out somebody that that has arrhythmia in his heart, I'm making this up, may be more susceptible than somebody with asthma. I mean, these are the kinds of questions that need to be answered so that we can deal with this in any future outbreak of this.
Right. And couldn't they be padding the numbers for other reasons, such as getting paid for COVID patients, or making it look like their numbers to begin with are more on track, or anything like that?
Any kind of reasoning, and that's sad to say, given the fact that this is urgent. Okay, this is an emergency in many parts of the country. Okay, and the fact that that people would actually lie about this for their own personal, political, or monetary gain.
Yeah.
It's humans. Humans will act like that. It's disappointing in this point.
It is, and I don't know the numbers, and I've heard other people say that the numbers are undercounted. And I don't know anything. I don't know for sure. All I'm sure about is this. Death, besides death and taxes, the media will lie. Okay, that is a take to the bank kind of thing. Yeah. And when you know the media will lie, you have to take it with a grain of salt, as you say, and you have to start doing your own research.
Yeah.
And that's what I've tried to do, and try to get people on like yourself who know stuff and piece some of the stuff together. We've become citizen journalists by necessity.
And have the ability, as you're demonstrating right now, and have the ability to get it out, and social media, and all the other ways that we have to communicate.
Absolutely. So let's go to number 2. We're talking about 60% of the COVID deaths, or thereabouts, in 19 counties out of 3,007 counties in the country. Number 2 is King County and Washington. By the way, it's a given, and I've said this in other places, but I should at least say it in here, and we should at least put it on the record. New York State is a sanctuary state. New York City is a sanctuary city. They've been allowing people to come in like crazy without being checked. And now, as I said on another, and I've said in other ways, their governor, Cuomo, is running around, Andrew Cuomo, right? I said Mario, that's his dad. running around. Andrew Cuomo's running around like he's Superman with these press conferences. But from all I can tell from the outside, it looks like he's really screwed up on immigration. He helped cause the problem to begin with. He had ventilators which are sitting around somewhere that he didn't use. He could have ordered other things. It seems like it's total incompetence. But to hide that incompetence, he's going off on President Trump. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right, and about that. And then you have the mayor, Kaiser Wilhelm Deblasio, but his original name is Wilhelm. Okay,
I didn't know
that. Saying that we're a welcoming city, and just sort of almost arrogantly blowing off any kind of risk when this first came out.
Yeah.
Now, again, not overreacting, but the smart manager would have thought, okay, let's take a look at this and see if something is coming out of this. But then you have people like de Blasio are out there just, we're a welcoming city and, no big deal. And it's like, what kind of a manager does that? Are these people as amateurish and as incompetent as they've seemed as this thing is unwound? Now, Cuomo has gotten better. Gavin Newsom in Sacramento, for whom I have no use whatsoever, they at least have been they, I think, have been fair in their response to President Trump, who is trying to help all Americans. And for them, Cuomo at this point and Newsom, it's sort of like they push politics aside. I expect politics to come back in.
Okay, so can we say, and I just thought about this, that perhaps the original sin of deciding not to close our borders for the purpose of political gain, knowing that people from below our country are going to be in more need of the government services, they're going to be not as educated, they will essentially be easier to control and more likely to vote for Democrats, right?
Well, and that's been the theory all along. And
and so can we maybe say that COVID in our country has blown up because of that original sin of wanting to bring these people in for political gain, or also for monetary gain for people to work in the fields or whatever the case may be?
It's logical. We've certainly seen it with other communicable diseases, which in our lifetimes have been cured, have been eliminated, but have then come back. It started in the 90s.
Right.
So if not for COVID-19 specifically, certainly for other communicable diseases, which proves that the threat is there, which is why we need to secure our borders.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I have this, and I put it up on the back door.
Build it now. Is that what it says?
It says, build a wall, build it now.
Build it now. Beautiful. All right, let me move on.
The proof is there that people can come in with these communicable diseases. Now, we've done a lot to cure these diseases, but in this one, we need to say, but this whole thing, again, the reset button, where we look at everything dealing, the global economy, mass immigration, border security, all of this stuff now is which has all been important, but is now in front of most of the American people, who I think a lot of them are getting the message anyway. We got to deal with it.
Now we can't avoid it. So let me
avoid it. Exactly.
Let me get to these other counties that you mentioned. Second one I have is King County in Washington. Now, any of these counties I named, somebody will be able to think Washington State, and they're going to say Seattle, right? Biggest, a very liberal city, right?
Right.
Sanctuary, city at least?
Yes, exactly.
Right, maybe even a county.
And I think King County is also, but King County, yes.
Okay, so we know that, and Seattle's turned into a mess, right? Was it Amazon was up there, or is up there?
Yes.
Turned into an absolute mess, as has San Francisco, as has LA, as a lot of these places. And the connection with illegal immigration and it becoming a mess is obviously, to me and to you, very put together. And hopefully the people who are watching this will start to kind of connect the dots pretty soon. Now, the third one is Orleans Parish. I give you a little hint of the word Orleans Parish there, Louisiana, right?
That's New Orleans.
New Orleans. So, same thing, right? Orleans, Sanctuary County, right?
Yeah. Now they've gone from 86 deaths as of last night, reported 339 deaths. So we're seeing that increase. And now, Wayne County, Michigan is Detroit.
Yeah, that's one on the list.
Okay, that's Detroit. All right. And that has jumped from 56 deaths to 1,148 deaths.
Wow.
Last night.
Wow.
So, and Wayne County, once again, Democrat controlled, sanctuary city, and all of this.
Hey, Rick, is Michigan or is Detroit close to the Great Lakes? I'm not familiar with this.
Yes, it is.
Well, you have the Great Lakes. You also have a whole other thing, which I don't know if we'll even be able to get into here, but we're talking about people coming in from other countries, and we're talking about, I just throw it in at this point because I don't know where it's going to fit necessarily, but because of our birth rates declining in the West, right? This is a whole other thing on top of the issue about just simple medical issue. There's also a threat to the United States because with the declining birth rates in every Western country, basically, including the United States, even with all of the birth rates rising from below the border from illegal immigration, they're still going down. But what birth rates are going up? The birth rates that are going up around the world are Muslim birth rates, right? And Muslims, this is not an anti-Muslim thing. A lot of great Muslim people out there, obviously. But first of all, their leadership is a problem. And when you have a cultural change, when you have a culture that's a Judeo-Christian culture, it has a freedom culture to it for 200 years, right, in America. You change it to a culture that isn't so much into freedom, that is more into, let's just say, non-freedom. You're going from people, the birth rate of being very small with the native born, to people who are coming over, like I mentioned, in the Great Lakes, possibly from Canada, because there's a lot of population of Muslims up there. Muslims, the population is like, what is it, like 8.1? I don't know if it's that high, but it's something huge like that per family. It's a very big birth rate in comparison to the U.S. birth rate. Our culture has already changed massively. Just go to Dearborn, Michigan and check it out from Muslim control. It's going to continue. The EU, European Union, is going to become majority Muslim at some point. It's already changing massively in no-go zones in Parrish and so forth. Did you want to comment on that at all? I know you know this.
Well, the no-go zones are an indication that they are anti-Western in their philosophy and in their behavior. But as for the birth rate, first of all, in the third world, I mean, we tend to forget and take for granted because we've had it so easy. But modern medicine is only 150 years old. Yeah. Before the mid-1800s, medicine hadn't changed since the Greeks. If you wanted to have any family at all, you had to have a large family because the infant mortality rate was so high.
Right.
Western medicine, one of the other gifts that Western civilization has given to mankind, has reduced the birth rate, increased the longevity rate, and all of that. And so their birth rate has continued. Now, if you take a culture where women don't have any rights, okay, they can't go out, get a job, and busy themselves doing other things that you see women in Western culture doing with the freedom that they have. Yep. Well, then they're going to stay home and they're going to have babies, okay, and that's the way it is. So you have the dramatic decline of the infant mortality rate, and then you have women who don't have any rights basically in that culture. To me, that's wrong. I remember seeing a guy on TV one time was talking about international businessmen. He goes, if you land in an airport in some third world country and you see that they have the place divided up for men only and women only, he goes, get back on the plane and take off because that economy is not going anywhere.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Freedom. We do not need to be importing people that want to deny individual freedom, that want to deny women freedoms, the freedoms that all human beings should have, and some of the other excesses that we see also. So it is a concern, and I think it's one that's also going to be looked at now in this reset. I'm calling it a reset. For immigration that's been announced by President Trump.
Hopefully, Rick, it will be looked at. And my concern is when Muslim populations become a certain percentage of the population. You've probably seen the videos too on this, and you can just know it by the way it is. When any group becomes a certain portion of the population, they start to push. I know this for sure because when I was back in Southern Cal, in the early days of illegal immigration, if you saw illegal aliens, I'm going to use the proper term here, you saw illegal aliens in your area, they were very polite because they were in a position where there weren't very many of them. They didn't want to get the immigration called on them. They didn't want to cause any trouble.
And they were happy to be here.
Happy to be here. And that's all changed. So you have now people who are in your face with this stuff. They don't really care about the people who are even native born, and they want to change the culture, and they want to just have another Mexico or another whatever from down south. The same thing seems to be happening if you go to Dearborn, Michigan or somewhere with a big Muslim population. You can get hurt up there if you start going up there. And I've seen videos where Christians have gone up there and gone in and started asking questions at a rally or something, and they were getting stoned, literally.
I think that we need to be careful of any individual, any philosophy that does not that is not compatible with Western civilization.
Yeah.
With the kind of freedom that Western civilization isn't perfect. We've done a lot of wrong things in the past, but the thing that we can do is change it. And I think we have been changing it. And as more shortcomings are pointed out, people like you and me and the people that you've mentioned and that we know, we will work to change it because that is what we believe in. However, I don't believe we need to be importing a philosophy that is totally against what we're doing. You know, you mentioned the illegals in Southern California. I had a friend several years ago who was Mexican. He was an illegal alien. He got amnesty in 1986. He eventually naturalized. He became a U.S. citizen. He loved being in America. He also he felt sympathy for the people trying to escape Mexico, which I do, which you do, because we know what's going on. Since I've been stuck at home, I've been binge watching Narcos Mexico on Netflix. I mean, if I lived there, I'd try to get out too. I don't want them here illegally. We need to do what we can to help them, but I understand. Yeah. Well, so did Jose. Well, Jose, fluent English speaker, fluent Spanish speaker, of course, would go to these meetings that we would have in our community, which was all illegals. And all they would do is they'd wave Mexican flags, put down America, talk about Mexico. Twice he came back. I said, how'd the meeting go? And he goes, and again, Jose had sympathy for other Mexicans trying to come here. He came here illegally himself. Now he's a citizen. He loved America. And he goes, if they love Mexico so much, why did they leave? I said, or go back.
Yeah.
And he went, exactly right. But it's this kind of...
It's the same thing with everything, Rick.
It's insanity. It's insanity. If you're here, you should love it and love the freedoms that you have and not try to overturn it, tear it apart, or harm the people that want to perpetuate it.
Well, everybody's got a group now. I mean, you know, women's group, you have a group for black folks, you got a group for illegal aliens, you have a group for gays, homosexuals. If you want to have a group, fine, have a group. It's America. You can have whatever group you want, okay? Right. But those groups always always have a tendency to be on the left politically.
Yep.
So they're always trying to like take our freedoms away while they're supposedly for this group that they're for. And it's just BS. I mean, I call BS on this stuff. They're not real groups. They're political groups.
Yeah, they are. And I don't know what that is. I think we need to be doing some deep psychological investigation into it. Maybe it's a lack of self-esteem. You know, when people like you and I in our age group grew up, Patrick, when you were young, you didn't not work. Everybody worked.
Right. Everybody worked.
And I've developed this philosophy, and I'm not an expert in it, but I think we have like conscious self-esteem and subconscious self-esteem. Subconscious self-esteem would be you get up, you get cleaned up, you go to work on time, you do a good job, you pay your bills. That's subconscious self-esteem. When you set a goal and you say, I'm going to enter this marathon and I'm going to win this marathon, or at least I'm going to finish this marathon. And then you do that, that's like conscious self-esteem.
Right.
And I think what has happened is, through no fault of the people who are experiencing our abundance, is they didn't experience any lack of abundance. And so they don't have the kind of appreciation that we do. Now, that needs to be taught. A lot of parents are falling down on the job, but that needs to be taught to people to appreciate what you have. You may not appreciate it the way I did, because, I mean, when I was young, we lived so close to the railroad tracks that it didn't matter which side you came from, right?
Right, exactly.
But for these other people who grew up with abundance, they need to at least be taught to appreciate it and what it'll be like to not have it. They'll never appreciate it the way we did, because we did without and then we gained it because America allowed that.
Yeah.
But at least they'll have some appreciation. The point being to want to defend it.
That's a really great point, Rick. And perhaps, as you said, and you keep bringing around to this point, and I think it's a good point here, perhaps the COVID-19 situation, coronavirus situation, it's kind of all encompassing, because it reminds me, my parents went through the Great Depression, okay? And my dad was World War II, and they went through the Great Depression, and they had a Great Depression kind of mentality, and they instilled a lot of that old school, my business old school. It's called old school for a reason. I have an old school mentality. I have old school.
You were told, as I was, that when you didn't finish your food, there's people starving in China.
Yeah. So this stuff was all inculcated, it was all in this idea of kind of depressionary mentality, like you had to work for what you had, and you don't take things for granted. And when you have good times, they're great, but don't take them for granted. All of the work ethic, all the things that you're mentioning, the values, the belief in God, which we don't have the way we used to.
Right.
All of this stuff. And hopefully this show is going to do more and more of that. And that's what I've been doing on oldschoolus.com. But I want to do more and more of that. Now, and you're right on about it, Rick. I want to mention before we close, because I need to close out soon, a couple of other counties here, just so people know around the country here. Number 4 on our list of coronavirus deaths out of the top 19 is Wayne County, Michigan, right? And we mentioned this, and you mentioned that from being in Detroit. The other one was, the last one on the list was Suffolk County, New York. But that is near everything, right?
That's Long Island, attached to New York. Yeah, Suffolk County had 40 deaths on April 1st. I checked last night, 859 deaths. And Suffolk County, Farmingville, that whole area going all the way out to the end. At the beginning of the Trump administration, we remember hearing about how DHS was out there dealing with MS-13 and all the illegal alien gangs that were out there, and the danger and all that stuff. So again, that whole area is all infused with illegal aliens, and again, this welcoming mentality. And just for the viewers, again, the sanctuary city. Let's see, my website is noborder-no-nation.org. It comes from the slogan, no border, no nation, no law, no civilization. And when you have people in these sanctuary cities and counties who will not enforce the law.
Yes.
I saw it, I think Tucker Carlson the other day had a sign up, no law, no order. Okay. Yeah. Basically the same thought process. You have to have law so that people know how to behave. And if you allow this radical individualism, you're going to end up with anarchy and chaos.
Yeah, and I wanted people to know too. I'm in a red state. Okay? Red. I wasn't wearing red on purpose, but I'm in a red state. Tennessee. A lot of people think Tennessee is really conservative, and they think Nashville is kind of conservative because of country music. I got news for you. Nashville isn't very conservative anymore. And Nashville was a sanctuary city, basically. It may not be officially, but when Mayor Briley was here, which is pretty recently, Megan Barry was mayor before him, but during the Megan Barry time, Briley, it was essentially a sanctuary city. And the other big county, the deaths are coming from the county, Davidson County, which Nashville is in, and the other deaths, the biggest deaths in the state, are coming from Memphis. So Memphis, you have a lot of crime and a lot of stuff out of control as well. But also, I looked it up, and Memphis was not a sanctuary city either officially, but it was a welcoming city. A welcoming city, which, if you read between the lines, is essentially a sanctuary city.
Look the other way. Yeah.
So and it's happening here. It's happening in California, where you're at, and your article made it very clear. This. If you take away the sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, sanctuary counties, we would have almost no serious issue whatsoever with coronavirus in this country.
And civilization, the way of life that we have come to enjoy and some take for granted, is dependent on people following some rules. I go back to Zig Ziglar, the great motivational speaker years ago. when Zig was a Christian, and he talked about a friend of his that he invited to church. And his friend says, he says, I don't want to go to that church. You know, there ain't nothing there but a bunch of hypocrites. And Zig responds, that's okay, friend. We got room for one more.
Wow.
But then he says, but I know it's not the hypocrites that keep you from going, because I know God didn't call them the 10 suggestions. Now, the 10 commandments.
That's right.
Now, some people don't need to be Christian or believe in God to obey the 10 commandments and not murder their neighbor or steal or do all the stuff that you're not supposed to do. But civilization depends on human behavior being moderated to not do these kinds of things. And our laws come from Christianity. Western civilization is based on it.
100%. And I would say you either have to have the laws written on a book or you have to have them written in your heart. Either way, if you don't have those laws somewhere, you've got a problem in your country. And we've gotten away from that so far. And hopefully God did say that at some point he would write the laws on our hearts, right? So even Abraham and even the Jews of old knew that, and they still do. I mean, if you look at Dennis Prager or somebody today, he understands that the laws essentially are I believe he does. I'm sure by the way he speaks. The laws are essentially on our hearts. So that's what we need. Really, at bottom, that's what we need if we're going to kind of carry our way out of this problem.
And I think we will. I think a lot of people are getting it. I think one of the another silver lining of this whole coronavirus crisis is people looking at. I mean, we've been experiencing a lack of freedom. The younger people are seeing it. Not having the freedom that they had. I had a young person in college the other day who's now doing classes online complained to me about the whole thing. I mean, they get it. They understand the need for it, but now they're seeing what it's like to not have the kind of freedom that they had before. And I think this is also growing a bit of extra appreciation for it. But in this case, I think we're very fortunate to have the leader that we have now, who is a problem solver, who can deal with it. He's not perfect. Guess what? Nobody's perfect, but he's better than any other choice I could ever think of.
I can't think of anybody who could do the job that this man has done. I don't know anybody that could. I mean, we had Ronald Reagan, God rest his soul, and nobody loved Ronald Reagan as much as I or probably you or some of our friends. I love Ronald Reagan, but I have to admit, this guy's even tougher than Ronald Reagan, in my opinion.
It's fun to watch him from time to time when you know that he knows that he's twisting some tails.
Yeah. But it's always, he can twist tails, but bottom line is what he's doing. The policies he's enacting are really, to me, is keeping our eye on the ball, and he's doing so much in the background that's never even hardly discussed.
That is true. Now we're going to start to see the reopening now. I think we're going to start getting back to a new normal, not the old normal, but we're going to get back to something that isn't a new normal as people start to go out. We're going to see that unfold. And I think at the beginning, we heard a lot of stuff about this coronavirus. I think we heard some stuff that wasn't exactly accurate coming out of Washington, but I mean, for people like you and me and the people that we know, we didn't need to be hit over the head to say, stay away from people, wear a mask, this is dangerous. We got it. But we still had stupid people that were going to the beach in groups or licking toilet seats for some reason. I don't get that.
Yeah.
But now we're moving back, and we had to have that excess to get people off the streets. Now I think we're going to start moving back to people re-entering the society, re-entering the economy. And I think in 2 or 3 months, this economy is going to be humming again. And people are going to go, what are you talking about? The coronavirus?
God willing, right? But and we did have people that were saying it's just a flu. Of course, the Spanish flu is just a flu too. But it's just a flu. So you have people underdoing it, overdoing it. The point is to hopefully that enough people have seen it correctly and doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got to wrap. Your website again, Rick, for people to get a hold of you.
NoBorderNoNation.org.
I will link to it in the description here. And Rick, you're doing a yeoman's job. You've been out there. You are one of the originals, man. And thank God for people like you, because you were doing the trench work for years and years and years, and you're still out there. It's amazing.
There was a whole lot of us doing it, and God bless them all. Now, I wrote a piece in 2017. Again, not an I told you so, but it's like you and me and the people that we know, we've been aware of this danger of coming in because of these massive open borders for 3 decades now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put up this piece that I wrote in 2017, and I'm just gonna put one line to it. I'm gonna say add to this coronavirus because it talks about all the diseases. But again, I think we're at an opportunity here that'll make America even stronger with this reset, and I'm glad we've got the man there ready to push the button.
100%. I couldn't say it better. We're going to close out right now. Thank you so much for being with me today, Rick. I really helped me out and helped other people out in getting the word out, especially about these counties. That just kind of woke me up even further. The people need to know the relationship between illegal immigration and coronavirus is like this. And thank you so much for doing that, Rick. I appreciate you very much.
My pleasure. Great to see you and talk to you, Patrick.
Great to see you, man. All right, I'm going to close out right now. And I want you to go to my website, go to oldschoolus.com, and I'm going to have this podcast there. You can also, my podcasts are also on Google Play, also on Apple Podcasts as well. So they're getting out there. They're starting to get out there more and more. But you can get it on my site as well. Also, I need your help, guys. Subscribestar.com. Go to subscribestar.com. I'll have a link there as well. And I need your support to do these kind of shows I've done with Rick today, other experts I'm having on and will be having on, the blogs, the videos, all the stuff we're doing, behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to throw in there a lot of fun behind the scenes stuff as well. But I need people to become subscribers and help me out. I want to do what I'm doing right now 100%. I want to totally go for it. And I think I can be useful in this fight here. I know because I've done it before. And I want to do it again. I want to be a communicator and bring in other people and have just a web of communication that educates us about what we need to know right now about health, especially natural health, about just having independence and freedom, having success, and getting our culture back. I can never leave that out, and it's so important. But anyway, go to subscribestar.com, and you can help me out. I just have one simple way to help me out per month. I've left it real simple right now. Not a lot of tiers. One tier, $5 a month. Even in Corona time, hopefully you can afford that. And tell other people about it. But I need support. The more support I can get, the more I can do this work. And I want to take it all the way to full time. So please support me as much as you can. Thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you so much. Keep listening, keep watching, keep your eyes open. Don't believe the media. If you learn one thing, do not believe the so-called mainstream media. They are lying to you almost 100%, at least 95% of them, I would say, that I see. So don't believe them. Believe what you see out there. Believe what you're seeing out there, and do the research yourself, and go to people that you can, that are doing the research too, that you can trust, and listen to what they're saying as well. Thanks so much for being with me today, and I really look forward to seeing you again real soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us on Old School with Patrick Rooney. Visit oldschoolus.com to find out more about natural health, success, and freedom. See you next time.